Shabbat Shalom. If there are any vegetarians or vegans in the congregation this morning, you're probably feeling a little queasy after our Torah reading. That was a lot of animals going up for the sacrifice. Now, it was over a year, but there were still a lot of animals that were being sacrificed. But more importantly than just being animals, they had to be tamim. They had to be perfect animals. These were animals without a mum, without a blemish. And that makes it even harder. Just to give you a small example, in the modern world, there is a hunt underway, that's maybe not the right word, a talent search under the way for a red heifer. If you remember back to Parashat Chukat, we need a red heifer in order to burn it up, again, sorry vegetarians, into an ash and take that ash and mix it in a special way, which allows us to ritually purify those who have come into contact with the dead. Without a red heifer, there can be no ever restoration of the temple services. Period. Do not pass go. Nothing can ever take place without that red heifer. And for decades of my own life, as well as even prior to that, but definitely since the establishment of the State of Israel, there have been people trying to find a red heifer. That's a cow that matches the precise halachic definition of what a red cow looks like in terms of the number of not red hairs and all of that. And so far, empty-handed. No red heifer. Which is a little bit of a relief because it takes some of the political pressure of what to do with the Temple Mount off the table. But it goes to show you how hard it can be to get that perfect animal that is needed according to the Torah. Which means we now have to have quiz time. What happens if you are living in Israel in pre-modern times? And you know, animals are plentiful, but so is illness. So are predators, so are many different pitfalls. There was no vet just down the road to help you. And many animals are getting maimed or blemished in some other way on a relatively routine basis. It's just par for the course of living in the rough and tumble pre-modern world. So along comes a holiday that says, I need 7 lambs, and I've only got 6 that are good enough for the altar. I've got plenty of other standby lambs, but all of them have one thing or another that's wrong with them, a blemish of some kind. I've only got 6 that meet the criteria. What do I do? And there's no Amazon to send away for a new lamb. You buy one. Okay, you've looked around the neighborhood, no one anywhere seems to have an unblemished lamb, and it is now the day of the holiday. There's no chance to find another one. But all your efforts, let's say you even had 7 yesterday, perfect lambs, and then during the night, one of them developed a blemish. There is no chance to get a replacement. So, do you sacrifice the 6 you got? Or do you say, God said that we need to sacrifice 7, and 7 is the unit, and if I don't have the unit, I'm not sacrificing anything. Because if I can't do it right, I'm not doing it. That would be an incomplete sacrifice, and therefore I'm going to be strict and not put anything on the altar. Or do you say, well, God knows I tried. God knows we had 7 here yesterday, or at least 6 that were good. God understands, and we'll just bring out one of those other lambs with the most minor of blemishes, and 6 plus 1 equals 7, good to go. Right? We'll just put it in the middle. No one will notice. God will understand. God won't care that this one has a little bit of a weeping sore or something. It's fine. We'll sacrifice 7. 6 of them will be perfect. 1 of them will not be. It's the thought that counts, right? What are we voting for? Sacrifice 6 and be 1 short, right? Just do what I can. B, don't sacrifice anything if you don't have the right amount to sacrifice because God asked for a particular form, and if you can't match it, don't do it. Or C, sacrifice 7 because that is the number God wanted, but the imperfection will let slide in order to meet that, that bar. I hear a vote for A. Why? Do the best you can. That's what you can do at this point. God asked for 7. I've only got 6. Sorry, God, if you wanted me to have 7, you should have given me another lamb. That kind of reasoning? All right. C. Who said C? It's hard to tell with the mask. I can't see the mouth move. C. That we should sacrifice 7 even if one of them is not officially fit for the altar. Because? Because who defines what is perfection? Well, Jewish law defines it, at least with regards to animals, with regards to what counts or doesn't count as a blemish that can disqualify an animal from the altar. So if we're going by Jewish law, we do have a pretty strong tradition of what that benchmark is, what that yardstick is. But that is still our interpretation of what is or isn't a fit animal for the altar. So perhaps we should say, God will understand. God made this animal. It may be perfect in God's eyes, even if it's not in ours. Onto the altar you go. Oh, I got another hand over here. Can you team up with your neighbor? So right now we're talking about the community sacrifices of Parashat Pinchas. So these are ones that are done for the community. So presumably we've all pitched in the best we could to begin with. B, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. Right? If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right. If you can't do it right, it's not worth doing. No, wait, that's not how that corollary goes. Hold on a second. All right, so you can see we've got all 3 of these here, and they all have legitimate rationales behind them. How do we solve the problem? Well, we look to somewhere else in Tanakh. Right? We find another text that can shed light onto the topic at hand. And the text that we're going to look at is Ezekiel. Now, I know what you're thinking, if you're familiar with Ezekiel at all. Ezekiel doesn't shed light on anything because he is confusing beyond all belief. But in this particular case, his confusion, or his confusing text, actually is very illuminating. Ezekiel portrays an entire restoration of the temple service, as he did live primarily in the post-Second Temple time. And in his vision, he says there will be 6 lambs brought on Shabbat. Any problems with that? Anyone paying attention to Parashat Pinchas today, or indeed the Musaf that we recite every single week? How many lambs do we normally bring on Shabbat according to the Torah and according to that quote from the Torah that's in our Musaf service every single week? It's like page 188 for those that want to quickly pretend like they've been paying attention. I'll give you a hint, it's not 6. All right, on average, because that's what the Torah says, it's not 7 either, it's 2. 2 lambs. Every Shabbat, we bring 2 lambs. That's the sacrifice for Shabbat. You are forgiven for not knowing that from today's reading because our triennial system began after the daily, weekly, and monthly lists and began only with the holidays. But you are supposed to be paying attention to the whole Torah reading during the week. Okay, that's my admonishment for the day. So on Shabbat we bring 2, but Ezekiel says we bring 6. That seems to be a pretty blatant contradiction of Torah. Now, Ezekiel is still in the Bible, and obviously we're not going to canonize somebody who rejects Torah and substitutes his own number. So the rabbis have to reconcile this particular deviation. And they do so by pointing out that the word Shabbat doesn't always mean day number 7. That the word Shabbat can be a stand-in for a holiday in general. Indeed, this is how we know that the beginning of the counting of the Omer begins the day after Pesach, rather than after the Shabbat near Pesach, the 7th day in the 7th day of the week within the holiday of Pesach. Trust me, that's a bit controversy between us and some other people. And they say, so on Shabbat, meaning holiday, indeed we normally bring 7 animals, Ezekiel says 6. What is Ezekiel telling us? He is telling us the answer is A. If you can only bring 6 qualified animals to the altar, you bring 6. That's good enough. Yes, you should bring 7. You should be trying to have 7. You should be making every effort in the year to prepare for all the different holidays to be sure that you have the animals necessary for the altar. But if you've only got 6, you do it. Now that seems a little bit of a cop-out, at least in the modern Calvinist work ethic kind of idea. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right. If you can't finish what you begin, you shouldn't even begin it. And Judaism says, no. 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 Yes, there are certain things that need to be done right. But much of life needs to be done to the best of one's ability. And recognizing that to the best of one's ability is actually the best thing to do is a profound statement and very much a necessary spiritual turn from many of the corrosive effects of Western civilization. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Western civilization. I like the fact that we have equal rights within Western civilization. I'm pretty happy about many of the medical inventions and all of that. But culturally, there's some substantial flaws in Western civilization, and one of them is this nonsense work ethic of having to strive for perfection in all things and to feel guilty if you come up short, or to imagine that you shouldn't even start if you don't imagine that you can do it the right way. And that is not a Jewish concept. The rabbis say, if you are able to begin, but you're not sure if you'll be able to do it perfectly, you do it anyway. You do it anyway. Think of all the things in life that we prevent ourselves from even starting because we imagine ourselves incapable of achieving the goals that we wish that we would be able to have. By setting a bar of perfection, we actually create a barrier to entry. You want to get fit, right? Everybody's favorite New Year's resolution. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to look like one of those people on those health magazines in the checkout stand. Well, no, I'm not, so why should I even bother? Right? I'm not going to change how I eat. I'm not going to change how I exercise. I'm not going to change anything in my lifestyle. If I know in the soul of soul that I am not going to look like that person on the magazine, and that's my definition of fit, that's my definition of perfect and unblemished, at least once the airbrushing has taken place, then if I can't be that, why should I do anything? It's the perfect get out of responsibility free card. I have no obligation if I do not believe I can meet that standard of perfection. You might have a challenging hobby that you wish to do. You might want to learn to play the piano, learn to paint. And then you think to yourself, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to become Leonardo da Vinci? Right? Am I going to be Yo-Yo Ma on the cello? No, of course not. I'm never going to be that good. So, never mind. Why should I bother? But not just for those types of things, but for many other aspects of life as well. When you think to yourself, this whole climate change thing is a little annoying. Something I was reminded of very pointedly last week when our air conditioner went out. It's not so much fun to live in a heating up planet. And as we have many friends and relatives in England that are struggling with their non-air-conditioned country through heat that would be even hot for us here in Florida, you might think, maybe we should do something about this. But there's so much that should be done, and it would be so disruptive, and it would be so difficult, and we're never going to get everybody on board to do it anyway. Never mind. I'll just continue to live my lifestyle exactly as I'm living my lifestyle. Why should I change a thing that I do if I can't actually achieve that final result, if I can't ensure that my actions will lead to that perfection? If I can't accomplish everything that needs to be accomplished to fix the entire world's climate system, then who cares if I recycle? Who cares if I drive differently? It's a drop in a bucket. It's a blip on the radar of what needs to be done. Surely my effort would be inconsequential next to what the world needs to see happen. And if I'm inconsequential, then no one will mind if I don't bother in the first place. Same thing happens with our obligations to one another. How much tzedakah can I really give? Right? I'm not Bezos. I'm not Bill Gates. I'm not Elon Musk, although I don't hear about him doing so much tzedakah. I don't exactly have billions of dollars sitting around to throw at the world's problems. What is my paltry few hundred here, 1,000 there? What am I going to be able to accomplish with that? Am I going to change a life with that? It's gone in an instant. Some of what I can give would be gone by inflation. So therefore, I should give no tzedakah. If my tzedakah will not actually change a life, not actually make anyone be pulled out of poverty, not be able to solve any of the problems that someone is facing, why should I bother giving any in the first place? If I can't give 7, why would I give 6? If I can't have perfection, why should I do anything? This is not the Jewish way of thinking. Judaism says even those who receive tzedakah have an obligation to give tzedakah, however small, to someone else that is also in need. No one's ability to give is ever so small as to be negligible and unimportant. Is it important for you spiritually? And it is important no matter how small in the effect that it has on the other person. First of all, by actually giving material benefit, which can make a difference for that hour, that day, that month, whatever amount it might be, and by giving them the reminder that someone else actually cares enough to try and help. And they may not be able to transform their life by one gift, but that someone actually does give a damn. And that is important in and of itself, regardless of the number of zeros that come behind the gift of tzedakah. When it comes time for observance in Judaism, how often have we said, oh, I would love to be able to pray in the Jewish manner. But you know, the Siddur is thick. We have services 3 times a day, 4 on Shabbat and holidays. There's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with that. Meh, I won't bother. As if there was no smaller version that was available, as if there was no small step that you could make into Jewish prayer that did not require you to use the Siddur every day cover to cover. By the way, there are lots of in-between places. Talk to me, I can help you with that. Same thing happens when it comes to kashrut or Shabbos observance. I know I'm never going to convert my entire kitchen, so yes, I'd like that double bacon cheeseburger and put some extra shrimp on it. If I'm not going to keep kosher 100%, I'd be a hypocrite if I kept kashrut for even 10%. So therefore, I must make sure that I don't keep kashrut at all. I know that on Shabbat, I am never going to be able to completely follow all of the different 39 labors that I am not allowed to do, so therefore I will make sure that I break each and every one of them, just so you don't think me a hypocrite by doing a half measure. Our minds have this insidious plague within them. We have been corrupted by our Western culture to think that perfection is the only measure of success, and anything less than 100% might as well be 0%, and you would be a fool, a hypocrite, and arrogant for even trying for 100 if you don't have a chance of success. And honestly, you don't have a chance for success. Because the definition of perfection, as you mentioned, we don't know. The definition of perfection is something that has been continued to be manipulated and inflated in all aspects of our life, and has done so in a way to give us these heroes and celebrities which are artificial and fake, and no human could ever attempt to reach, including them themselves. They have press agents to be able to celebrate every action that they do. They have press agents to cover up all of their faults. They have people who touch up all of their media so that way they always present the perfect image. They are not perfect. You are not perfect. God did not create any perfect creatures. God created creatures that strive, that climb, that grow, that break their nails and scrape their knees and come up short time and time again. And God loves us all the same. Love yourself the way God loves you. Give what you can. Be who you are to the best of your ability. Don't allow that nagging doubt of seeking perfection and your fears of failure to keep you from being who you can truly be, because that is the perfect you. Shabbat Shalom.